So today we will be talking about how to beat Darkworlds. Now a lot of you guys have requested this from me, and I'm going to show you a couple of tricks on how to beat Darkworlds. Personally, I do think they're a tier 1 deck. I do think they're very dangerous. I do think they are a big threat in winning YCS tournaments, locals, all of that. But there are ways to stop this deck, and I will have to say that this deck is easier to stop when you side versus when you open up against them. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into the deck. These are key cards that I think make Darkworlds get their place off. So if you go against a Darkworld deck, you have to be ready to face these cards, because these cards will basically make the whole entire deck function. So let's start off from right to left instead of left to right. Now let's start off with the Gates of Darkworlds. Now, let me show you a trick here. When your opponent plays Gates of the Darkworld, and they use its effect to banish a Darkworld monster, what you want to do when you play Darkworlds and they have this card is you want to set your MST. When you're playing against Darkworlds, I never want you to open up with MST and just use it right on the spot. Never do that. It's a wasted MST. What you do is you chain it to when they activate the Gates of the Darkworld. So that way, when they banish their Darkworld monster, you pop the field spell and they get nothing. So they lost their field spell and they banished the Darkworld for no reason. That's a key to beating Darkworlds. Also, here's another trick. If you have a face down Compulse or an MST, and your opponent goes Darkworld Lightning against that face down card, you chain that MST, or you chain that Compulse to it, if you can with the Compulse. You chain the MST, and you chain the MST to target Darkworld Lightning. That way, they don't destroy the target, and they don't get their effect to discard. That's a little trick that most people don't know. So whenever you have MST against Darkworlds, realize that that is going to be one of your key cards to beating it. Also keep in mind that you should never, and I mean ever, waste an MST on a back row in Darkworlds, because Darkworlds don't have dangerous trap cards. Because of that, you want to set every time you go against Darkworlds. You also have to keep in mind that Darkworlds, their biggest fare is trap cards. So if you use cards like Macrocosmos, Bottomless, Solemn Warning, and when I mean Solemn Warning, don't Solemn Warning Grappa. Solemn Warning Beige or Brow that will be bumped to the hand to summon Grappa, or whatever card you think they're going to bump to their hand. That is the key to beating Darkworlds, because if they don't have that card on the field, they can't summon Grappa. However, obviously, if you have a Bottomless, you let them summon the Beige, bump it to the hand, they summon Grappa, you Bottomless it. That's how you do it. That's basically a key to beating Darkworlds, and also keep in mind that a lot of people don't know that when there's a field spell on the field, the monster gains the boost the minute it hits the field, which means you can Bottomless it if it's stronger than 1500 when it gets to the field. A lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players didn't know this, and I'm going to show you all of the tactics to beating Darkworlds. Now, let's take into consideration DD Crow. Okay? Now, some people say this isn't really good against Darkworlds, but I really think this card is good against Darkworlds, because when they dump Grappa, and a lot of players, they like to go Foolish Burial, dump Grappa, summon Beige, bump Grappa back to the hand. That's usually one of the key cards that they want to use. And if you manage to banish that Grappa, there isn't much they can do with that. You also have to take in consideration Drag Down to the Grave. Now, I can't necessarily say there's any method to stopping this, because there really isn't. You just hope they don't have this card. This is one of their power cards. This is the scariest card they have. If they have a Beige and a Brow, let them summon the Beige. You're better off letting them summon the Beige than letting them draw a card and then plussing and plussing and plussing and plussing and plussing. Darkworlds plus a lot, so let them take the Beige instead if they have the option. If there's no targets, let them take the Grappa too. You want to get Grappa in the grave so you can set up your plays. Now, when you have DD Crows and Soul Releases, these are basically support cards for taking out Grappa. If you take out Grappa and Gates, you're basically in good shape, because they don't have any other way to discard monsters. This field spell is a consistent and constant way that they continue to discard cards without having other cards do the work for them, like Fabled Raven or Darkworld Dealings or Drag Down. Those are optional cards they have, but this card is the source of all of their plays. So if you can get rid of Gates and Grapha, you're in good shape. Now, I main Thunder Kings in my deck, but you guys should also use Thunder King maybe if you're playing against Darkworlds, because they use Snow more than they use Grapha. And because they use Snow more than Grapha, that basically means she searches anything out in the deck. She can search out the field spell, she can search out Darkworld Lightning, she can search out anything. You want to make sure that Snow can't get her plays off in order to slow down Darkworlds. You also have to keep in mind, if you are going to use Prohibition, if you are going to, and when I mean going to use Prohibition, I mean you've got it in your head that this card will be used in your side deck. This is optional. A lot of people don't like using it. I just run one Prohibition just in case there's like a key card. You want to use Prohibition not on Grapha, but you want to use it on the field spell, because the field spell is the source of their plays. Grapha is a dead card without other cards doing the work for him. So if you already have a card called Close Forest, which I highly suggest you side against Darkworlds, you use Close Forest, you stop them from ever getting to use their Gates of the Darkworlds, and good luck for you guys, because Darkworlds don't usually main MST, they usually side it in. So if you side this card in, you'll be in good shape. You use Close Forest, you stop them from using Gates, and then maybe you can use Prohibition on Grapha. That way you eliminate two of the key cards, and maybe even possibly you want to use it on the Snow. But I really suggest, if you already have Close Forest, use Prohibition on Grapha, use Close Forest to stop their Gates of the Darkworld, and that is good. Last thing is you have to take in consideration that Debunk is a really good card, because Debunk basically banishes almost all of their plays, and it's a counter trap, so they won't be able to respond to it quickly. So the minute they use Snow, Grapha, anything, or mainly Grapha, let's say they use Darkworld Lightning and they pop a face down Mirror Force or something, and they discard the Grapha, you want to activate Debunk right after that, because if you use Debunk, you banish their Grapha, they can't really get it back. Now, I know Trans Archfiend is there to get their plays back, but the point of Darkworlds is they're different from Inzectors. The thing is that you will be surprised how much Darkworlds crumble once you stop some of their plays. They're the type of deck that needs a lot of things to work. If you stop any of their major plays, they're not in a good position. And you also have to consider that almost all the time, their back rows are going to be a Dark Smog, or they're going to be Reckless Greed. Alright, so a lot of times, Darkworlds, they use Reckless Greed, they draw the two cards, and they can't really do anything with it. And that's your time to go off and make explosive plays. So if you're playing Dino Rabbits, I suggest you go for Dolka instead of Logia against Darkworlds, because the thing is that sometimes they'll trick you. Sometimes they're going to go Darkworld Lightning, discard, Grapha, pop. In that case, you want to use the Dolka to negate all of the Snows, all of the Graphas, all of the Fabled Ravens, all of that stuff is better off with Dolka instead of Logia. So if you're playing Dino Rabbits, go for Logia. Now, if you're playing 6 Sams, you'd be in pretty good shape. Unfortunately, though, I think Sams usually lose to Darkworlds because, you know, the whole Grapha Pop Sheehan thing. But if you have that Masankanadi, whatever the heck that trap card is, that stops all those effects from targeting 6 Sams, you'll be in good shape. So remember, guys, to use MST to effectively, because MST will be your best friend. And me personally, I side in Breaker, because Breaker is really good against Darkworlds. It just use it to pop their field spells all the time, because you remember, Darkworlds need their field spell. They need it more than they need Grapha, because they can live without Grapha. Grapha is the best card in their deck, obviously, and you'd have a good shot at them if you kill Grapha, but they really need this field spell more than anything else, because this is the card that keeps letting them get plays off and off and off and off and off. So you get rid of Gates, make sure they don't have Grapha. Maybe you even want to use Prohibition on Drag Down, and you'll be in great shape against this deck. Just keep in mind that this card Destruction, and maybe even a Morphing Jaw will be the end of you. Alrighty, guys, so I hope you guys enjoyed my Darkworld speech, and have a nice day.